Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today we're going to be talking about the new submachine guns that just came out in the Planetside 2 patch. Each faction has their own specific SMG, and if you want to unlock them, they cost 1,000 cert points, or alternatively you can buy them with 700 station cash. SMGs are special in that they have been designed to be shot from the hip as opposed to aiming down sights. This is achieved because SMGs have the same cone of fire growth rate when firing from the hip as they do aiming down sights. Most other weapons in the game, pretty much all automatic weapons, have a cone of fire growth rate that's almost double when you shoot from the hip as opposed to aiming down sights, but not with SMGs. They will provide you a very small accuracy bonus for your initial shots if you aim down sight, but for most engagements at close quarter to medium range, hip firing is going to yield pretty similar results as aiming down sight firing would. So it gives you the ability to shoot from the hip before having to aim down sight, which actually gives you a split second faster reaction time than most people that are going to start off aiming down sights. They also have significantly worse ADS accuracy than most other weapons out there, so you really just want to use them in close quarters, but in close quarters they are absolutely brutal and a lot of fun. Alright, let's talk about each of the factions' SMGs, and if you stick around to the end I'm going to compare them and talk about which ones I think are the best. Starting off, we have the Eridani SX5 for the Vanu. It does a maximum damage of 143 and has a rate of fire of 750 rounds per minute. This is identical to the VX6-7 carbine. By default, it has 25 rounds in a magazine, which is 5 less than, say, a 30-round carbine. However, you can upgrade this to 35 rounds by buying the extended magazine. Now, its aiming down sight accuracy is 0.4, which is 0.1 higher than the other SMGs out there. Just means it's going to be a tiny bit less accurate while aiming down sights. Now, to give you guys some perspective on just how inaccurate these weapons are while aiming down sights, a carbine has a 0.1 aiming down sight accuracy starting off. Some other weapons like special assault rifles have 0.03 aiming down sight accuracy. This has 0.4. Basically, they don't want you using these guns at medium or long range really, and you may as well just hip fire in close quarters. That's what they're designed to do. That's what you may as well be doing. The Eridani has a 1.75 second short reload time, which is incredibly fast, and a 2.85 second long reload time. This makes it the fastest reloading SMG of the three. It is tied for short reload though with the NC weapon. My recommendations for setting up this gun is to buy the extended magazine and buy a suppressor. I wasn't finding the laser sight to be too useful just because the range at which you're normally going to be killing people, you'll have enough hipfire accuracy to get the job done, and you'll want those extra 10 rounds. Let's move on to the Terran Republic's SMG-46 Armistice. This gun has a maximum damage of 125 per shot, which is the lowest out of the three SMGs. However, it has an incredible rate of fire of almost 900 rounds per minute, clocking in at 896 RPM. And even though it has the lowest damage per shot of the three SMGs, it still has the highest damage output per second. Unlike the other SMGs, this one starts off with 30 rounds in a magazine instead of 25. This is to try and balance out the fact that it's doing less damage per shot than the other SMG, so it's going to need a few more bullets to deal out the same amount of damage. It does, however, have one of the longer reloads at 2.27 seconds for the short reload and 3 seconds for the long reload. It has a low recoil of 0.5 pull up to the left and right. This means that it's going to sort of pull up and wobble a little bit to the left and right as it's doing so. This isn't really a big deal, and although it is lower recoil on paper than the other two weapons, the fact that it fires at almost 900 rounds per minute means that you're going to be experiencing that recoil much more frequently. So it's still going to be basically on the same level as the other SMGs in terms of controlling the recoil. It's not going to be a big deal for the most part, since most of your stuff is going to be shooting from the hip in close quarters. Its aiming down sight accuracy is 0.3, which is slightly better than the Vanu weapon, but overall you're not going to really want to ADS too much anyway. Keep it close, keep it firing from the hip. Now my setup for this weapon again is extended mags and an optional suppressor depending on what kind of mood you're in or what class you're playing. Infiltrator makes great use of the suppressor. You can really get around in close quarters and deal out a massive amount of damage without alerting the enemy to your position. Let's move on to the new conglomerates AF-4 Cyclone. This weapon has a maximum damage of 167 per shot, which is higher than the other SMGs, but it also fires at the slowest rate of fire of 672 RPM. Now, assuming that you're landing all your shots, this weapon actually does slightly outdamage the Vanus gun. The Terran Republic gun, as I said before, does outdamage both the other weapons in terms of pure damage per second output. The recoil on this weapon pulls up and to the left and right. Again, it's going to pull upwards and slightly shake to the left and right with a pull of 0.22. On paper, this is higher than the other weapons, but again, because it's got a much lower rate of fire, you're going to be experiencing this recoil less, so the recoil is actually going to be relatively easy to control. Its first shot multiplier of 2.25 is higher than the other two SMGs, but again, this is pretty low on the grand scheme of things, and it should allow you to keep your crosshair on target, both aiming down sight and shooting from the hip. Its short reload time is 1.75 seconds, which is tied with the Vanu's short reload time. So it's tied for the shortest short reload time, if that makes sense. And its long reload time is tied with the TR's SMG at 3 seconds. Its initial aiming down sight accuracy is 0.3, which is tied to the TR weapon. Again, this is not an impressive stat overall, and you only want to aim down sight at medium range. If you can get this in close quarter, just hip fire away and you should be fine. Now, the new Conglomerates SMG is my least favorite, simply because of its low rate of fire. I find it to be pretty ineffective in close quarter combat. If you want something to down somebody in close quarter combat, you either want a pump action shotgun or something that fires really fast, allowing for you to just put a maximum amount of damage out as fast as possible. Now, as I said before, the NC gun actually does outdamage the VS weapon. However, because of its lower rate of fire, you might have a harder time actually landing as many shots as you do with the VS weapon. A basic principle of the difference between high rate of fire and low rate of fire weapons is that high rate of fire weapons are much more forgiving if you miss a few shots. Low rate of fire weapons are going to punish you a lot if you miss a few shots. It'll probably end up making you lose the firefight. Another thing that bothers me a lot about the new Conglomerates SMG is that it's not really an SMG. By definition, a submachine gun is an automatic carbine designed to fire pistol cartridges. This makes them fast firing but low damaging. Even the Vanu's weapon barely fits this description. I think the TR weapon is the best representation of what an SMG would be in Planetside. The Vanu's weapon sort of has the same damage output as one of the carbines. You know, the VX6-7 I said has the exact same damage output per shot and the identical rate of fire as their SMG. So again, it doesn't really fall into the SMG category. But with the NC, it's doing 167 damage per shot. That's more than most guns in the game do. Now, the NC have broken the mold before with, say, the GD7F carbine. That fires at 845 rounds per minute. I'd wish they had broken the mold with the SMG here for the NC, because personally, I don't like it for close quarter combat. I feel much more effective with, say, a GD7F for the NC. And I just don't really particularly like this carbine at all. It's easily my least favorite. Now, the Terran Republic SMG46 I think is the best hands down. It's got easy to manage recoil, the highest rate of fire, almost 900 rounds per minute, being pretty much the fastest shooting weapon in the game. It does do very little damage per shot, but as I said before, it still has the highest damage per second output of any of the SMGs. Now, if you combine the high rate of fire with the highest damage output, you easily have the best SMG. You know, assuming it's relatively accurate, which it is, you can still hip fire this thing without a laser sight, give it an extended mag, bumping its magazine size up to 40 rounds, and you're good to go. This thing is a major player in close quarter combat. Now, what classes would you ideally want to use an SMG for? Well, I tried it with the light assault quite a bit at the start because that class is good for getting up close and personal, but ultimately I found that I engage people with light assault at medium range so frequently that I found the carbines to be more useful. Carbines are also still really good in close quarters. Their hipfire accuracy isn't that bad, so if somebody comes around the corner right in your face, VX6-7 is going to waste somebody pretty much just as fast as the Vanu's SMG. So I found that I was really just preferring carbines still with light assault class. Infiltrator, on the other hand, really changed up the class and allowed it to be very, very lethal in close quarter combat. You can now get into bases, have a powerful weapon to take people out in close quarters, you can throw down proximity mines, you can basically be the most annoying class in the game, and it's a lot of fun. I recommend trying it out. Go buy an SMG, slap it on your infiltrator, sneak into a base, and start making people angry. Overall, I think if you're planning on using them for infiltrators, all the SMGs are worthwhile to get. However, I still think the TRs is by far the best, NC is by far the worst, and VS sort of splits the difference. So once again, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.